According to George Couros, technology will not replace great teachers, but technology in the hands of great teachers can be transformational. That's the power of blended learning.
Hello, Science!
I'm Ted.
Brother Gino here,
Miss Alex here.
and welcome to our discussion about models and frameworks of blended learning. The blended learning model is deemed to be the most practical method to use because it combines all the advantages of synchronous and asynchronous strategies. The main motivation in using the blended learning model is to increase students' participation in their own learning process, rather than just being passive receivers of content.
When the school modified its major delivery of services because of the pandemic, academic-related matters were mostly delivered via online. Gradually, with the decrease of cases, face-to-face setup has been reconsidered as another mode of learning, but with limitations. Today, we are going to dig deeper into blended learning and how we can possibly contextualize it into our own setting.
At the end of this discussion, participants will be able to define blended learning, differentiate the models and frameworks of blended learning, and discuss various structures of blended learning.
There are different definitions of blended learning from various academic research. Graham, Allen, and Ure have summarized these in 3 points. Blended learning as a combination of different instructional methods, blended learning as a combination of different modalities or delivery media, blended learning as a combination of face-to-face instruction with computer-mediated instruction. As Rooney puts it, blended learning is the combination of face-to-face instructions with computer-mediated instructions.
50 years ago, the term blended learning was first introduced by the Open University of the United Kingdom. From there, other educational institutions have invested towards the exploration of ways and means to improve student satisfaction and retention. New models and approaches were soon formulated. For the past 2 school years, we have utilized 2 modalities of learning, the online and offline learning modalities. We have used Canvas and other web-based applications for the online learning modality, while for offline learning modality, we have mainly printed materials for our students. Imagine putting together the best features of these 2 modalities to create the best teaching learning experience. Technologically mediated interactions between students, teachers, and learning resources in addition to live classroom and laboratory interaction is what blended learning promises. The formula of blended learning has remained diverse. There is no one way to conduct blended learning in any educational institution.
Garrison and Kanuka highlight the importance of effective integration between modalities that are available. At the end of the day, blended learning must not just be adding on to the existing dominant approach or method without any goal. We can only have a successful integration of blended learning if we have understood its key concepts before we practice it.
So let us discuss one particular framework that supports blended learning through its design and implementation, the Complex Adaptive Blended Learning System, or the CABLES framework. In the CABLES framework, the learner sits at the center, but all components impact each other. There are 6 elements in the system, all with their own subsystems. These 6 elements are the learner, the teacher, the technology, the content, the learning support, and the institution. Not only does each element have its own character and subsystem, but each acts in relationship to all the others. As in any complex systems, the relationships are dynamic and integrative. This adaptive system of blended learning emerges from the relationships and the effects of each element acting with and on the other elements. The role of learners changes or adapts as they engage for the first time or in new ways with the elements in the system. The teachers engaging in blended learning will adapt to pedagogies appropriate to engage productively in diverse 21st century societies. They will now be identified as facilitators, mentors, advisors, and moderators. The interactive, dynamic, media-rich materials available online create opportunities for teachers and learners to add content before, during, and even after the course experience. Technology extends the human capacity to get things done. Technology for learning requires new roles for the learner and teacher and new ways of accessing and working with content. In this framework, the technology has to be seen as part of the system of blended learning, one that includes all elements working in relation to each other. Support can involve technology troubleshooting, material access, and learning to communicate effectively online, as well as all the other usual support around understanding content and assignments. Learner support means academic support focusing on helping learners to develop effective learning strategies, and technical support aiming to help students improve their knowledge of the technological tools and the fluency with which they use the tools to complete specific learning tasks. Blended learning requires technological infrastructure and digital support staff. According to Wang, the cable's framework is designed to facilitate a deeper, more accurate understanding of the nature of blended learning as institutions try to create their own model, the way how they adopt it.
Now that we have discussed different definitions and as well as one framework that supports blended learning, we now dive into 3 different models as suggested by the National Institute for Information Technology: skill, attitude, and competency-driven learning models. For the skill-driven model, learning specific knowledge and skills requires regular feedback and support from facilitator or peer. Further, this model mixes interaction with a facilitator through email, discussion forums, and face-to-face meetings with self-paced learning, such as web-based courses and books. This approach works best when people are learning content at the knowledge or application levels. Techniques to incorporate skill-driven blended learning model includes creating a tightly scheduled group learning plan, using instructor-led overview and closing sessions, using synchronous learning labs, providing supports to learners through web-based applications. On the other hand, attitude-driven learning model content requires peer-to-peer interaction in a risk-free environment. This approach blends traditional classroom-based learning with online collaborative learning events. The desired outcome, which is developing attitudes and behavior, necessitates the inclusion of collaborative learning that's facilitated through face-to-face sessions or technology-enabled collaborative events. While part of the decision-making process is guided by common facts and working principles, people also need tacit knowledge that's often retained by experts. Learning that facilitates the transfer of tacit knowledge requires a competency-driven approach because people absorb tacit knowledge by observing and interacting with experts. Activities may include a blend of online performance support tools with live mentoring. While there is no guaranteed perfect formula in the use of blended learning, all of these models can be used in order to create what best fits the needs of our institution.
There are numerous structures that can complement the models of blended learning. The blended face-to-face class is based in the classroom, although a significant amount of classroom time has been replaced by online activities. Seat time is required for this model, while online activities through the LMS are used to supplement the in-person classes. Readings, quizzes, or other assessments are done online and at home. This model allows students and faculty to share more high-value instructional time because class time is used for higher-order learning activities such as discussions and group projects. The blended online class is the inverse of the blended face-to-face class. The class is mostly conducted online, but there are some required in-person activities such as lectures or laboratories. The flipped classroom reverses the traditional class structure of listening to a lecture in class and completing homework activities at home. Students in flipped classes watch a short lecture video online, and come into the classroom to complete activities such as group work, projects, or other exercises. The flipped classroom model can be seen as a submodel of the blended face-to-face or blended online class. In the rotation model, students in a course rotate between various modalities, one of which is online learning. There are various sub-models: station rotation, lab rotation, and individual rotation. Some of these sub-models are better suited to K-12 education. Station rotation, for example, requires students to rotate between stations in the classroom at an instructor's discretion. Others work well on a college campus. The lab rotation model, for example, requires students in a course to rotate among locations on campus. In the individual rotation model, a student rotates through learning modalities on a customized schedule. In the self-blend model, learners are enrolled in a school but take online courses in addition to their traditional face-to-face courses. They are not directed by a faculty member and choose which courses they will take online and which they will take in person. The blended MOOC is a form of flipped classroom using in-person class meetings to supplement a massive open online course. Flexible mode courses offer all instruction in multiple modes, in person and online, and students choose how to take their course. These are just some structures of blended learning which any educational institution can take on. It is possible for each program to have a different structure depending on their needs.
Now that we've heard about compelling facts on blended learning, theories about it, as well as putting some of its models into practice, it's high time to design, produce, and implement our own model that best meets our goals as a Lasallian institution.
To contextualize blended learning model into our LSU curriculum and to share more details about it, let us have Dr. Glenna Takan and Mr. Jack Jun Kaupayan for the Basic Education Unit, as well as Mr. Benji Lavastin for the Higher Education Unit.
Please proceed to your unit link crawling on your screens right now. We hope that together with your co-faculty, you would be able to gain insights and share your own wisdom as well during your respective sessions. Thank you so much!
TechZONEd Con 2022 Festival of Learning. TechZONEd Con 2022 is presented to you by LaSalle University's Educational Technology of Educational and Digital Media Services Team, or EDMST, and Institute for Development, Education and Learning, or IDEAL, accredited with 10 CPD units, PTR-2018-186-1103.